Welcome to the 50th edition of my Pug, Fireball, and Company podcast, where I focus on America's pastime, both past and present. Are you ready to be entertained, informed, and intrigued by stories of memorable players and epic games? I'm your host, Steve, and today we're switching sports and talking to Courtney Boyd, the new head women's basketball coach at Valparaiso University in Valparaiso, Indiana. I've known Courtney since she was one of Iowa's best prep basketball players at Keokuk High School in the southeastern part of the state. After that, she played 2 seasons at Kirkwood Community College in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, for teams that won a national title in 2006-2007 and finished second in the nation in 2005-2006. She played 2 seasons at Dixie State University in St. George, Utah, where she twice received all-conference honors. She earned a Master's of Education degree in Educational Leadership from Augusta University in Augusta, Georgia, in May 2014. She and her teams have picked up several honors since she started her coaching career in 2009. Her 6-year stint at Clark University in Dubuque, Iowa, culminated with the Pride winning the NAIA national title in 2022-23 with a 33-4 record. She became the winningest coach in Clark history with a 155-42 record and received the NAIA National Coach of the Year award in her last season at the Iowa school. In her second season at Quincy University in Quincy, Illinois, this past season, the Hawks finished 25-8 and captured their first Great Lakes Valley Conference tournament title since 2005. In addition, the Hawks advanced to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2016, and Courtney was named GLVC Coach of the Year. All told, she has a 190-68 record in 8 years as a collegiate head basketball coach and has won 20 or more games in 7 of her 8 seasons. I like what Kim Mule, her former head coach at Kirkwood Community College, said about her. Courtney is a tough, strong-minded person who is very competitive and passionate about what she does. She was a winner when she played for me and has carried that mindset into her coaching career. Good afternoon, Courtney.
Good afternoon. My goodness, I didn't think we had to share all of that, but thank you so much.
Well, you've had an awesome career, so I wanted to share it with our listeners. You have quite a track record going for someone still so young.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
First of all, what attracted you to the position at Valparaiso University, which is a member of the Missouri Valley Conference, a major school?
I think a lot of what attracted me was the Missouri Valley Conference. It's a Division I school, and there are some people that's an ultimate goal is Division I, and there are some people that, they like where they are and they like the success they're having. So it was kind of twofold. We had just had a lot of success at Quincy, and probably sooner than a lot of us thought we were going to. But when we had that success, sometimes things happen and it just feels like the right time and the right place. So when I was contacted by the athletic director, it felt just that. The Missouri Valley Conference, obviously growing up in Iowa, you're watching Drake and UNI as you're growing up, and you're kind of feeling connected to that with Iowa not having any professional sports teams. So there's something to be said for watching women's basketball really grow. Obviously, Iowa has become a really big women's basketball state for multiple reasons. So it always was played a little bit closer to my heart, I think, when I knew that what conference I was going to be in, and just the competitiveness of what the conference has been, and honestly, in such a long time. It's one of those things where all of the pieces kind of fell in place, and it really felt like a place where I could get settled in. It was my type of people, and I'm really hoping to be able to help them turn the corner.
I graduated from Bradley University in Peoria, so I know the Missouri Valley Conference very well, and of course, it's a great rival of Drake. They're about the same size schools, both private schools. I'm surrounded by Drake graduates here in Des Moines, so I have to be careful what I say about Bradley and Drake because they're big rivals. But I did get accepted into Drake too, as I recall. So what is your goal for next season?
The biggest thing with where we are right now and the little bit that I know in the last month since this whole thing started, I think the biggest thing is figuring out who we are and what our identity is going to be. It feels like so many times you go into a position and everybody's worried about what offense you're going to run and what defense you're going to run. We've tried to put that on the back burner, as crazy as that might sound. We wanted to create the staff that we felt was going to recruit the similar players for all of our next goal is to finish the roster, to make sure that we're filling the voids on our roster, not only basketball wise or size, but also character. I think that there's something to be said for that, especially this day and age with everything that's been going on and people coming and going and looking for more in different places, and it's hard to settle sometimes. So we're trying to figure out the people and the personality of Valpo. So the more people that we get in, the longer they stay, and the more we can kind of create that consistency. And it lasts a little bit longer. I want success to happen, but if it happens this year and then it doesn't happen for 3 years, it seems like kind of a fluke in my mind. So we're willing to start a little bit slower if we can put the right people in the right place, whether that's our staff or our players, if that's going to be able to sustain success for longer.
What was their record last year?
They won 13 games, and if I had to go back and do it, I would always remember all the records of my years and other teams and those types of things. But as crazy as it sounds, the numbers piece it doesn't stick with me. So I know the last thing that I heard was they won 13 games and they felt like they were one game short of making a postseason appearance outside of the conference tournament.
Have you met with the players yet?
I have, yes. I was able to work them out a handful of times. So when I went through my press conference that afternoon, I got in the gym with the players. So that was pretty exciting. So I was able to. There were 7 returners. 5 of them are healthy. 2 of them are coming off, whether one of them came off of surgery and the other one is getting ready to have surgery. The 5 that I was able to work out with, they were very coachable, ready for new and exciting and different things coming their way. The communication that we were able to have gave me a better idea of kind of where we stand and what we need and the voids that need to be filled between now and, this upcoming season.
Are they upperclassmen or freshmen and sophomores?
The returners, it's about half and half. There are about 4 this season. There were 2 freshmen and then 2 or 3 sophomores. And then of the returners, I think the other 3 or 4, whatever the math is, I think that they're upperclassmen. So we will be in a spot with the returners where there are 3 that will graduate. And then we're bringing in one more incoming freshman with the 2 freshmen that were already signed with the previous staff. And then we're looking to bring in a handful of transfers, whether that's junior college or a couple players that played with me at Quincy and another player that we recruited. So she'll be an incoming freshman. And then other players that we know people through the grapevine. I'm not big on jumping on somebody that's going to be a transfer that I can't talk to anybody that I know personally. I like to know their previous coach or somebody, an old teammate or somebody that they maybe have interacted with somewhere along the way. It gives me a better idea kind of who they are and what they're about and then how much they really love the game.
So you're bringing one from Quincy?
I am, yes.
Yeah. What position is she?
The past 2 seasons. She's quick. She's a little undersized, but that's never been a fear of mine. I never hit that size either when I played. So I think I give undersized point guards a little bit more of a leash because the harder they play, they're a little bit grittier because they've got something to prove. So she's coming with us. We'll only have her for 1 year. She's got her senior year left. It's just important to bring that consistency amongst players, and she's going to know what the expectations are in the locker room. She's going to know the expectations on the court. So I really feel comfortable with bringing her in, and hopefully she can run with the type of leadership we're looking for.
Will you use the same style of play that you used at Clark and Quincy?
we're sure going to try. I think there's a little bit different makeup of the conference. So I do think that we're going to have to adjust a few things, whether it's defensively, how we're guarding ball screens, or what we look like in the full court, and if we're pressing and when and where. But offensively, we want to play fast. We want to be fun to watch. We don't want to score 50 points a night. I don't know how many people are going to show up in the gym that night if we do that every single night. But I do think that we will have to adjust a few things offensively just because of the makeup of the conference. On any given night, you're going to be pressed sometimes. You're going to see a bunch of threes made and just defense on the other end. There are teams that are going to slow it down and they're going to run in the half court. They're going to be very structured on what they're doing and why they're doing it. So we have to be prepared for a little bit of everything, allowing for our offense to have a little fluctuation throughout that. I really think that will set us up for a little bit more success, especially in year one.
You touched upon this, but how is recruitment going for the 25-26 season? Is this kind of late to get into the recruiting process, or?
If you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, "Holy smokes, we're really behind." But with the transfer portal, it's kind of a crazy thing. I would say if we wanted freshmen still, if we wanted incoming high school, graduating high school, incoming freshmen, yes, I would say we're way behind. But then junior college, it kind of goes in cycles. So the beginning of the season, we'll be finishing up with high school players. Then you kind of move into identifying those junior college players, if that's what you prefer, and you watch them until their national tournament happens. And then you kind of you roll over and you roll into that transfer portal. So right now, if we had 5 spots left, I would say we're way behind, but we're about 1 or 2 spots from being complete. Other than this week right now, where we're sitting in a recruiting shutdown, which is unfortunate, we're in an okay spot. Once the shutdown gets over, we'll get back on the phone with a couple of them, and hopefully in that first week back, we'll be able to solidify what our roster looks like. And before we know it, we'll be working summer workouts, so it'll be here soon.
The shutdown, I've never heard that before. Could you explain what that is?
Yeah, so there are periods throughout the season, whether it's recruiting season, during the summer, off season, whatever it is, and there's an evaluation period, there's what they call a dead period, all of those things. It just dictates how much we can communicate, where we can communicate, whether we can see them in person, whether they have to come to our campus, things like that. And just in the last handful of years, they've started a recruiting shutdown, which means that every staff in Division I across the nation, I cannot call, text, email, have a visit, go evaluate. I can do nothing as far as recruiting throughout that time. And I'm still trying to figure out whether they did that for the recruits or whether they did that for the coaches. But it is a sigh of relief knowing that you don't feel like you're falling any further behind because everybody else is supposed to be doing technically nothing in the recruiting world as well. So while I'm trying to get my head above water, this is kind of a nice week. I do wish they pushed it to next week, but I'll complain about that after I have a few years under my belt.
Now let's take a break to listen to my other podcasts with such guests as Sam Burnaby and Brittany Wayhofer of the Iowa Cubs and former major leaguers Jim Marshall, Byron Brown, and Rich Nye. Go to www.youtube.com/@Steve Dunn or just go to Pug Fireball and Company podcast. You can also get my book, Pug Fireball and Company, 116 Years of Professional Baseball in Des Moines, Iowa, by going to pugfireballandcompany.com. It's also available at several bookstores in central Iowa. 2424 fall edition of the Annals of Iowa had a nice review of my latest books. You can get a copy of that through the State Historical Society and read that review. I've been doing fun facts from the book to promote the book, and because I like baseball history. In 1905, the Des Moines Underwriters, yes, they were called the Underwriters, under manager Herm Long, won the Western League title with a record of 95-54. Claude Rossman led the league with a .357 batting average and 229 hits. Pitcher lefty Liefeld's 26 wins and .743 winning percentage topped the league, too. And by the way, Des Moines had its first professional baseball team in 1887. So since 1887, more or less, they've had professional baseball here, except for a period in the late 30s to 48 and 69 to 81. Other than that, they've had professional baseball here about every year. Let's get back with Courtney now. What are your thoughts about the transfer portal and NIL money? You sort of addressed the transfer portal, but what about the NIL money? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's how are you using it? And honestly, I'm just starting to dip my foot in it and kind of understand what everybody has and, how is it being delivered. There are times where the 18 to 22 year olds that you're recruiting are being a little misconstrued on what that money looks like. Everybody can say that they're giving them a scholarship and they can break it down in their own terms for that. Like I said, if you're using that in the right way and you're truly trying to educate them on what money they're going to have and how it's going to benefit them on top of being paid for bringing people to the stands, then yeah, absolutely. I think that they should be paid for what they're doing. For years, the reason that people are showing up and there are fans in the stands is just like a professional athlete. You're not showing up to necessarily be there. There's something to do. It's like going to a concert. You pay the people that are performing. So I think paying the people that are performing, if that's what we're truly doing, then I think it's great. On the other side, right now, it's so uncontrollable on how much money is going out from certain places. Other places don't have any money. How is it being delivered? How are they earning it, or do they have to earn it? Nothing is very close to black and white at all. That's what's creating all of the misconception about the positive and negative of it. Hopefully soon we'll get to a little bit more structured a way of going about things. But I do think that there's something to be said for recruiting. If you want a post player, it would just be like before. Are you getting a full ride scholarship or are you not getting a full ride scholarship, right? Well, I've had to deal with that forever until I came, to Valpo. I was always giving, whether it was you're getting your tuition paid for, but not these other things, or you're not getting, you're a walk-on or those types of things. So now everybody gets a full ride scholarship. On top of that full ride scholarship, now they're offered extra money. I think that there's, that comes with expectations. That comes with, are you holding up your end of the bargain? How hard are you working and all the team rules and those types of things. But I also think that it's creating a mess in the transfer portal as well. Just like any coach, just like any player, if somebody gets offered $10,000 at 18 to 22, how are you going to pass up $10,000 if you haven't been educated on why they're giving you what they're giving you and what that actually looks like? Because a lot of them are like, oh, that's great, I get $10,000. Well, that's not in cash, right? Like at some point you're going to have to, somebody's paying taxes for something, but do they understand that? So student athletes, they deserve to be given to in some way because they are creating that revenue for the university. But I wish that there was a little bit more clarity and, levels are never going to be equal, but I do wish that there was a little bit more black and white about how we had to go about things.
Does it create jealousy among players, though, if players know somebody's getting $100,000 and they're not getting anything? Or do players know what other players are getting?
If you're at a Power 4 school, there are probably names that have come up as you were growing up. Your Caitlin Clarks and your Paige Beckers of the world and your post players, right? Like there's all kinds of players that everybody knows they're probably getting more money than the person next to them. But I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a conversation that happens in the locker room. That would be, to my knowledge, right? I have been in locker rooms where there have been people that got a full ride scholarship or they didn't. They were a walk-on or they got a partial. And that never came up. That was never talked about. So that'll be a bridge that I have to cross. If I have 2 or 3 players that are on a decent amount of money and then everybody else isn't, or maybe there's only 3 other players that are, but it's minimal. So if that starts to become a conversation, that's something that we have to address as a coaching staff. Just because you're getting paid more money doesn't mean that you're more important than your teammates, right? Because you still can't play 1-on-5. But I think that there's a way to go about it to make sure that it's not I'm more important than you, and that becomes an ego thing. And I might not be the same as other coaches, but I don't do egos well. So we can do a chip on your shoulder. You can play hard and you can be confident. But if we get to that point, then we'll probably have to have a couple more conversations about how important money is to you.
Whose job is to explain the NIL? Is that your job to the player, or somebody else at Valpo will explain it to him? like the athletic director.
It's my job, and I think there are some places that other people are overseeing it, or they control it, or how the money gets dispersed and those types of things. But right now, unless the athletic director were to say that she wanted to deliver it, I wouldn't feel comfortable with anybody else delivering it, because then it would fall back on me. So I want to be able to deliver it, and if something's misspoken or misconstrued, at least it comes back to me. But that has been one thing that I've had to really take my knowledge from 0 to 100 in the first 2 weeks, because I didn't have to deal with that. I didn't have any hands in on that in the past.
Do you wish NIL money had been available when you were playing college ball?
I'd be silly not to say no, but I just don't know. I just don't know what I would have. I know what I would have done with it, and it probably wouldn't have been great, right? I would have had a lot more pairs of shoes, or I would have had a different apartment or car or house or whatever. My friends would have visited me a lot more for free, probably, depending on how much money I got. It's such a surreal thing to me, because going to college was going to college, and if you wanted to get paid to play, you were a professional. So it's such a foreign thing, as like trying to put myself back in a player's shoes. But I would be silly to say that I wouldn't have. It just would have been, here's a little bit of money and you're never going to play, or here's a lot of money at a different level and you're really going to play. That would have been just as important to me as far as having money and whether I was going to get to be on the court or not on game day.
Seems like the biggest advantage to NIL money is the players at the power conferences. So do athletes at mid-major schools like Valparaiso and Drake Bradley, do they benefit that much from NIL money?
Yes, there are. In this conference, almost every school has a pot of money. They either have a revenue share or they have a collective. And with those, obviously, the way the money is dispersed and the conversations about the money are different depending on which one they have. But majority of teams in the Missouri Valley Conference do have money to give. From the highest to the lowest, I think that there's a big discrepancy between the top of the Missouri Valley Conference and the bottom, but there is a little bit of money for each school, and then some schools are able to pay either larger lump sums or they're able to pay more athletes.
How is that amount of money determined?
It just kind of depends on how so if it's a revenue share or if it's a collective, it depends on where that money's coming from. So if it's a collective, then obviously you're raising the money to be put towards the amount of money you're able to spend on players, and then what they have to do for that, they have to give something back. So if it's a nonprofit organization for the collective, then they have to do nonprofit things in order to receive their money. So there's a little give and take. If it's more of a revenue share, they're at activities and they're doing different things. So the amount of money on those activities is dispersed in a different way. It's a little bit different communication. So how much money goes into each of them, it just depends on what category they fall under, and then how your university operates as far as who holds the money and how are they able to share it.
Did you ever think when you got into coaching that you would be talking about NIL and the transfer portal and having to make decisions about who's leaving, who can I get, how much can we pay her? I mean, it's not coaching. It's a lot more accountants, human relations.
That's exactly right. The crazy thing is now a lot of staffs, the higher up you go, they have GMs on their college staffs now, right? And so somebody has to be able to speak the language. You have to trust somebody enough for that money to come in and go out, and for an 18 to 22-year-old player to receive anywhere from $5,000 to $105,000, and that's even more. But on the men's side, there's even more money that's passed around, and then it's from sport to sport. So to answer your question, no, I never thought that the money piece would be something that I would be having a conversation about years ago when I started this whole thing. I saw it coming more. The transfer portal started to come more. Coaches started to move a little bit more. And then the money piece came with that. And it was one of those where it's like, okay, well, you either embrace it and you get on board, or you're going to fall behind and you're not going to you're not going to be able to coach the personality of the athletes that are to come. So I try to get on board, and to be honest with you, it's always, you always have dreams as a little kid, and like, what can I do and where could I go, and these are my goals. But at my age, not quite 40 yet, I will put that out there, but under 40, and being able to be offered the opportunity to be a Division 1 head coach, that came as a surprise as early in my career. And so talking about the money, I didn't think was going to I thought I had a few more years to well verse myself on it. So here we are, just kind of learning it together.
Is this the least favorite part of coaching, the money part of it and the transfer portal?
Yeah, I am a little old school when it comes to that. The relationship piece is really big for me. I would love to have a team from their freshman year through their senior year. I think that there's a lot of perks to that. But in order to keep up with the Joneses, in order to get to where you need to go, if I tried to do that every year, there would be a situation that if every single player on the team was a 4-year player, we wouldn't be able to keep up with the Joneses, just simply to veterans, bigger, faster, stronger, those types of things. So I have to lean into the way that things are going right now. And obviously I was a JUCO player, so I'm a little partial. I'm a little partial to the whole transfer thing. But when I played, that was the majority of transfers. You went to a junior college to improve, to transfer again, knowing that was the plan. I would like to think that I am trying to get players that that's not their plan. They don't just want Valpo to be a pit stop. But if it becomes a plan, then that means they helped us succeed. Hopefully they're transferring because they think that they belong at the higher level, as opposed to they're transferring because they didn't fit the system, or they didn't feel like, we had the interaction that we needed to. If they're transferring, I hope it's more for a positive reason. I mean, I can get on board with that than it would be because they didn't get 39 and a half minutes of playing time every single game night.
You kind of anticipated my next question. So is it difficult to keep really good players at the mid-major schools from going to Power 5 schools such as the Big 10, the Big 12, or the SEC? I mean, Drake's had that problem. They've had guys go from Drake to the Big 8, Big 12, I mean.
Yeah, on the women's side, it is, but I don't think it's as big. On the men's side, you have one good season, and they're like, Coach, we had a really good season, and we won a conference tournament championship. I'm better. I'm better now. I can go to the next level. And some of the coaches are like, yeah, you're right. Go make some money. But I do think on the women's side, there's a little bit more consistency. I would like to think that. But in my head right now, and we can talk in a year from now and see if I was anywhere close, but I think there are coaches that plan to lose 1 or 2 players consistently a year to the portal, whether it's being unhappy or they think they should go up to the next level or whatever the case may be. If it's more than that, then I feel like I would need to look in the mirror. If it's less than that, then I think that maybe we've created something where we feel a little bit more comfortable. They're graduating, but we're still bringing in JUCO transfers, or we're still getting 1 or 2 portal players a year. So it is hard, but you go about recruiting a little bit different. If we have 4 spots to fill, we're probably filling 2 of them with high school players, and then 2 of them as a transfer, and we're just planning for that. And so that's a little bit different of an approach than it would have been 10 to 15 years ago, if not more than that.
When a possible transfer player would want to come to Valparaiso, would you call his former coach just to find out about that player and why he left his old school?
Yeah, sometimes it's a hard thing because there are times where you never know if it's positive or negative, and so there are some times where if I knew them, I would pick up the phone and say, how Susie, how is she? How was she? Why'd she leave? But what I would try to do instead is I would try to figure out who I might have known from their high school to their college days, whether it's their AAU coach or their college or their high school coach, or maybe somewhere in between. I know a coach that knows them, that type of thing. But I would ask them their story and their reason why, and then I would try to find somebody in the middle ground of their reason why they think they might have transferred. Because if it's a negative thing, if I have a player leave when we didn't fit and it wasn't a great fit, I'm not going to say everything was rainbows and butterflies about why Susie's leaving, right? And so I want to be able to make my own interpretation. Sometimes coaches are like, oh my gosh, I can't wait until they're gone. And then they're going to tell you all the good things. And then they do the same thing at your institution. Or They're going to be upset. They're going to be bitter that they lost a really good player, and they might share some things like they didn't work as hard as I had thought they would. And then I get a misconstrued understanding of who they really are. Sometimes, but I don't always go back directly to their previous coach. I just try to find someone along the way that they may have been interacted with, or they may have come in contact with, where I feel like it's a little less fresh. So not everybody's as upset potentially talking about what they are and why they might have left.
What is your coaching philosophy?
Oh man, if I were to have to say it in a few words, X's and O's is fast with a purpose, play to the buzzer, and play for each other. If I were to give you bullet points of what that looks like. But my philosophy is the better the relationships, the better the people. You have to get athletes, but the more games you win. I honestly have never been behind a team that had the biggest, fastest, strongest athletes, and we've been able to have the success that we've had because of the camaraderie that we've had. We didn't always care who got the credit. In the teams that we didn't have as much success, we cared who got the credit, and it really showed. Going from year one at Quincy to year two, completely different mindset in the locker room, completely different mindset at practice, and it showed. And going from early in my career at Clark and later in my career at Clark, it was just a completely different mindset. And being an assistant for other programs, I've really seen the same too. So X's and O's, you can't be a point guard and want to play slow. So I think my point guard tendencies and my love and passion for the game, playing hard and, getting on the floor and doing those types of things, I don't think that will ever go away. I'll always love that about somebody if I'm recruiting them. But I do think it's important to understand where they came from, and their values and beliefs have to match our values and beliefs. And so the better people that we get, I truly do think it's all about people. I mean, you got to have an athlete. You have to be able to run and dribble, right? You can't get the best person and not have a little bit of skill. But I do think in certain situations, and if you put the right people around each other, that skill will take them to the next level because they're going to do it for their teammates instead of just themselves.
What have you used from your time with the head coaches at Keokuk High School, Kirkwood Community College, and Dixie State University?
One thing that I've carried over is the consistent passion. Whether you're talking about Jerry Jerome or Kim Wool, there's a consistency there. It started in 5th grade with Todd Miller and Jeff Spears and Mark Stanley and all those guys. That not one of them was ever quiet on the sideline. That is one thing. I'm not ever quiet on the sideline, and it's not to at the players, but if I want them to play to the buzzer, then I have to coach until the buzzer. So I try to keep that consistency. I took the foot stomp from Jerry Jerome. I took the intense timeouts from Coach Moore, and there's a little bit of everything, but the X's and O's and the love for the game, I've definitely carried that over. But just being able to rely on them, pick up the phone and call them at any time. Hey, what do you think? Could you help me could you guide me through this? I think that goes to show the relationships that I felt were important. Because if I can still do that while, they're almost at the end of their career and I feel like I'm starting to get to the middle of my career, if I can still do that, then they showed me how important relationships were, whether they were passionate on the court or not. Those two things have really stuck with me.
Do you still talk to them sometimes?
I do. I talk to them probably more than some of them care to talk to me, but I have a saved message on my voicemail from JJ, and he and I talk few and far between, but I know that every time we pick up the phone, it's going to be a genuine conversation, and it always ends with, love you, kid. And so I know that there's a special place for JJ. I always knew I loved basketball, but I really figured it out once I was able to find a little bit of success under him. And then being in the college game and having so much success at Kirkwood, I'd be silly not to reach out to Coach Mole and either try to recruit some of his players or ask him for a little guidance or what do you think about this school or do you know anything about this athletic director or those types of things. He has so many connections and honestly he's been in it so long that like I said, I would do myself an injustice not reaching out to him in those situations.
What do you remember the most about your basketball career at Keokuk High School? Then I'll tell you what I remember the most about you.
Okay. The thing that I do remember the most is just the unwavering support of the community, honestly. It always felt like we could be playing the worst team or the best team. We had the same amount of people in the stands, the same amount of face paint, the same amount of cheers. The two games that I remember the most, actually there are three. There's one, I was a freshman and we played at Burlington, and something happened and I went in and I think I made a pass, or I don't know, something happened. I didn't turn it over, I know that. The student section started chanting, "That's our freshman." I don't even know if we won that game, to be honest with you, but I thought that was one time in my high school career that I had chills, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And so that was one. The other one was we were in the gym at Fairfield and we were in a conference tournament game, I believe. It was a big game and I could not hear myself think. I could not hear, JJ talk. I could not hear my teammates. And I was screaming a play so loud and I felt my voice crack. I just kind of, right after that play, I think we either made a shot or the ball went out of bounds, and I turned and I just kind of looked at our section of fans. And I immediately just thought, this is like so cool. Like, how are we even going to lose this game? This is so cool. And then the game at state, the two things at state, I got an intentional foul. And I don't think I'll ever live that down in my family. The craziest part about that is the girl that I got the foul on, she played for Xavier and she became my roommate at Kirkwood, Maggie O'Connell. And so we had a lot of memories throughout that. But I think that going to that game and being in that moment, I was able to be on the court with my best friends, and we did all of those things, and seeing the community in the stands during that time. Looking back on it now, we were all sad we lost, but I think that it was just an incredible thing. I was just in the gym in the last couple of months at Keokuk, and we can always walk by and find the trophy. And I think that that's a really special thing for honestly a really great group of people.
I was at that game, of course, all the games you played up here. You guys should have won that game, but whatever. I think you got into foul trouble the first half, as I recall. That didn't help, but you were still ahead. Seems like you were still ahead with like 6-10 minutes to play, but just couldn't get over the hump.
Yeah. And I found out that not being in that situation, like if we would have not been seniors and we would have made it back there, like if that would have been our junior year, and we would have made it back the next year, I think it would have been completely different, no matter what game we made it to, whether we made it to the state championship game or not. Not having been there as a group, now being in a coach's situation and being in the coach's seat, there is a tremendous change from year one to year two of being in that moment and understanding how to control your emotions, especially at that age. And I've seen it. I've seen being in the tournament year one and being in the tournament year two, and you just feel like you're a completely different team. So I agree. We couldn't get over the hump, but I do think, excuses or not, I do think that's a little bit of it now on the backside of things.
Do you still correspond or talk to some of those kids on that team? Well, they're not kids anymore, but some of your fellow players on that team?
I do. The cool thing about growing up in a small town is there were only so many people in your class. And so there was just a message that went through social media somewhere like, hey, do you guys know that it's 20 years since we graduated this year? So what are we going to do for it? Which is also crazy to think about. But yes, I've had friends and high school teammates. They've showed up in the stands. They've come to games at Clark. They were at games at Quincy. Now the coolest part for me is when their kids show up at my basketball camp. That is one of the full circle moments for me. Like, oh my goodness, this is really a cool thing. Your parents are bringing you. I can talk to them about how they're doing, but now I get to share my love for the game with you, just like you and your mom or dad and I all shared it when we were all in high school. So it's really cool. And yes, we do keep in contact. As you know, everybody's just as busy as everybody else. But it's nice when we all are able to kind of share those memories or send those really questionable pictures that we celebrated and those types of things. It makes for a good time.
Well, folks, don't forget the Iowa Cubs continue their 6-game road trip against the Toledo Mud Hens tonight. The Mud Hens are the AAA affiliate of the Detroit Tigers. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Courtney, for joining me on this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.